Today I'm going to tell you about the 5 things I know about the college football season, including what's going on with TJ Pledger and the running back rotation in Oklahoma and how I think it's going to work. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. So we're going to get into what I think is going on in the running back room regarding TJ Pledger, Trey Sermon, Marcelias Sutton. But first, some things you need to know, starting with Addison Gumbs. You know, that Addison Gumbs, the guy who not a week ago we found out was leaving the program, was transferring away. And there are all kinds of rumors as to why. Lincoln Riley said there's no bad blood. He just need to go home. And all this came after Addison had suffered a season-ending knee injury in which he would not play at all this year. Thought he was going to be the starter at Jack linebacker. Mark Jackson has stepped up and he's made that role his. Addison Gumbs we thought was going to go home, closer to Cali, close to LA. Turns out that man has enrolled at Oregon State, according to the student directory. Now, this came as a shock to a lot of folks, in particular because did he have ties to Oregon State? Well, turns out he does. His former teammate at Stellar Prep, that's in Hayward, California, is Oregon State Beaver freshman Deshaun Wilson. He's a corner up there. However, it does feel kind of awkward, feels kind of rushed, feels kind of out of left field, but Addison Gumbs is a guy we all know could play. He had 23 sacks as a senior in high school. We know what he does best. He's defensive end. He looked like he was going to be a guy that Oklahoma was going to get a lot of production out of. He seemed like the heir apparent to Obo Oronko for a very long time. But this is how the game is played. This is how college football works today. And it ain't like Addison Gumbs, even on a rehab knee, ain't going to be a load in the Pac-12, man. Remember, Addison Gumbs was an Army All-American and had over 30 offers going into Oklahoma. Those offers included Nebraska, Oregon, Tennessee, Ole Miss, UCLA, Texas A&M, USC, UCLA. As soon as Addison Gumbs pulled out of Oklahoma, you had to know that he was going to be in high demand. Did I think it was going to happen this soon? No, I don't think anybody really did outside of maybe Addison Gumbs and his family. But I want the guy to have fun. I want the guy to have a good experience in college. I want him to go to Pac-12, tear it up. Because Lee Morris is a scholarship caliber receiver, and we know that. And speaking of scholarship caliber receivers, leads me into the next segment. So one of the things I've been wondering aloud is, are CeeDee Lamb and Hollywood Brown the best tandem of receivers in the entire country? And you know, I think they really are. I mean, if you look at their last 16 games, and I pulled this out of The Athletic, CeeDee and Hollywood are averaging 19.3 and 20.6 yards per catch. Think about that for a second. You're not just averaging a first down, you're averaging 2 first downs. That means every time you catch the ball, it's a chunk play. Now, I understand a lot of that has to do with playing with Baker Mayfield last year. But this year, there hasn't been a whole lot of drop-off with Kyler Murray, you know what I'm saying? Plus, CeeDee, after not really getting any targets against Florida Atlantic because the ball just didn't find him, went full God mode against UCLA with 7 catches for 146 yards to go along with an outstanding punt return where if he just doesn't look back over his shoulder, I think he runs it back to the house. But it will be interesting to see how Hollywood and CeeDee progress throughout the year because last year seemed like Marcel Aitman and James Washington had the franchise on dynamic duo at wide receiver. This year, I think that title solidly goes to CeeDee and Hollywood if they can just keep up the production that they have put forth, which is basically trading 100-yard receiving games. But also bear in mind how much of the receiving offense is put on the shoulders of those two guys. Peak game. Oklahoma has 38 receptions by 10 players for 640 yards through 2 games. 410 of those yards and 19 of those receptions, or half of those receptions, come from Hollywood and CeeDee. So it is very clear that as much as we thought that Grant Calcaterra and or Lee Morris was going to be the dominant receiver in an RPO-styled, zone read-styled offense with Kyler Murray, what he's really been doing is throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb and Hollywood Brown and them saying, watch me work, dog. Because as much as, yeah, he's putting it on them down the field, they're also catching the ball and doing their punt return thing with it by making people miss or outrunning them. So it'll be interesting to see how the offense continues to evolve without Rodney Anderson in the backfield. We'll get to more of that in a minute. But regarding the RPO, I think we need to talk about what Pat Fitzgerald had to say about the RPO. For those of you that don't know, and why would you, Pat Fitzgerald is the head coach at Northwestern, which is in the Big Ten, which hardly plays real football. And I say that tongue-in-cheek, but it's really hard to take a guy like Pat Fitzgerald seriously when he says something like this, which is, the RPO is the purest form of communism. What? So he's saying that he doesn't like the RPO because because, well, it seems like you're bending the rules because linemen are illegally downfield. First, the rulebook says that offensive linemen can't move further than 3 yards down the field. So if they haven't done that, they haven't broken the rule. Second, the RPO takes into account the official rulebooks, the guidelines, the rules as they are set out. And then the RPO is a play respecting the rules of the system as the system has laid them out. But it is also an offense that is acting in its own self-interest, giving the consumer the best opportunity to compete and begging the defense to compete with it. What I'm saying is the RPO is really just free market, which is nothing like communism, which is why football coaches should just stay in their lane and coach football instead of talking about economic policy and economic systems for which they are not qualified. Pat Fitzgerald, you beat Purdue. Stand on that. Get off of economics. That's not where you live, fam. But you know where Kyler Murray lives? In your Heisman watch list. Like, he was a sexy pick for the Heisman before the season even started. And then when it was confirmed that he was going to come back after signing his contract to play Major League Baseball with Oakland next year, all Kyler Murray had to do was really just pick up where Baker Mayfield left off, which seemed like a bigger task when you think about Baker Mayfield is the most efficient college football quarterback in history. And all he did was make 2 college football playoffs and win the Heisman Trophy, and have a receiver who was at the Heisman ceremony, and quarterback the most prolific offense in history. But what did Kyler Murray do? He showed up and said, snap me the ball and watch what I do with it. So with Kyler Murray, you have a guy with 515 yards passing with 5 TDs and 1 pick to go along with 92 yards rushing with 2 TDs. He's completing 63.6% of his passes and averaging 6.6 yards per carry at the quarterback position. Against UCLA, he had 375, Oklahoma's total of 485 yards of offense. And 2 games into the season, 2 wins into the season, 2 outstanding wins into the season, and the number 5 team in the country, national folks are like, oh, man, they got a quarterback back there at Oklahoma. He might be pretty good. He might be on the caliber of Baker Mayfield. Maybe we should put him in our Heisman watch list. Well, duh! So if you take a look at the ESPN expert poll, and I do, you'll note that Kyler Murray is number 4 on the list, but peep game, he was only one of 3 players to receive 2 first place votes. Now the list goes Will Grier, Ed Oliver, Jonathan Taylor, Kyler Murray. But we know that Will Grier and Kyler Murray will get an opportunity to cancel each other out because they play in the same conference. And Ed Oliver plays for Houston, and Houston don't play nobody. Plus, Ed Oliver's name ain't Charles Woodson, so he ain't gonna win the Heisman Trophy. No disrespect to defensive players, but the Heisman Trophy is an offensive award. So the guys to continue to keep your eye on are actually just Jonathan Taylor, maybe Bryce Lev, and Tua Tagovailoa. Outside of that, Mackenzie Milton is an outstanding quarterback. Ain't gonna win the Heisman Trophy because he quarterbacks a group of 5 team. Same goes with Brett Ripien at Boise State, who's gonna tear Oklahoma State a new one. Plays for a group of 5 team. But the thing that I find interesting about the Heisman watch and the Heisman polls is the one guy that I think should be on it who's not on it. And that's quarterback at Ohio State. That's Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins has already thrown 9 touchdowns against 1 pick heading into Ohio State's biggest game of the season so far against Texas Christian on Saturday night. He's also buoyed by Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins at running back. And you can make an argument that the only guy playing better defensively in the national landscape of college football than Ed Oliver is defensive end Nick Bosa at Ohio State, who's going to have his opportunity to show what kind of NFL talent he has against a dual threat quarterback who's more run than pass in Sean Robinson. Now, I know a lot of folks are going to ding Sean Robinson because, well, he ain't that great a passer. But that ain't the fear for me if I'm Ohio State. If I'm Ohio State, what I'm afraid of is Sean Robinson running a zone read concept that simply just keeps Ohio State's defense on the field for as long as possible, while Gary Patterson's 4-2-5 defense goes to work on Dwayne Haskins and the boys. Now, I've said it. Dwayne Haskins is an excellent quarterback, and I know what they have at running back, but it ain't like the DBs at TCU can't run with the Ohio State wide receivers, and that's where the matchup is for me. If Dwayne Haskins can beat Gary Patterson's secondary, Ohio State wins. But I don't think that's true. I think Texas Christian is going to treat this quasi-home game like a true home game and put the clamps down on the fighting Zach Smiths. So I'm going to take TCU in this one. Go get one for the Big 12, Gary Patterson. It's time that you carried your weight because Lincoln Riley's back is sore from carrying this conference. Now I want to get into what's going on in the running back room for Oklahoma. In particular, what is going on with Trey Sermon, Marcelias Sutton, TJ Pledger, and Kennedy Brooks in the wake of the tragedy that is Rodney Anderson's knee injury. Now, if you're a Sooner fan, there's a lot of good news here, despite losing Oklahoma's best running back. First, your best runner outside of Rodney Anderson plays quarterback, and we all know what Kyler Murray can do with the football, and I expect him to continue to do that with both his legs and his arms. But behind him, the guy with the most yardage is true freshman TJ Pledger. Now, I know a lot of folks are high on TJ Pledger, and they should be. 4-star running back out of IMG Academy. All-purpose back who's pretty good about catching the ball out of the backfield. But the thing that I haven't seen out of TJ Pledger is doing it against the ones, is doing it when the score isn't lopsided, is doing it against the defense where he has to pick up the rush and stand in a lane and pick up a linebacker. That's the thing that worries me the most about TJ Pledger. In Trey Sermon, I know what I have, and I also have a guy who was just a yard behind TJ Pledger in yardage this season. Now, both of those guys are averaging better than 5 yards per carry, but I trust the preacher man a little bit more than I trust TJ Pledger. But the guy that I trust more than I trust even TJ Pledger, Trey Sermon at this point, is Marcelias Sutton, because all Marcelias Sutton has done when he has his opportunities to play is run the ball and score touchdowns. As a matter of fact, TJ Pledger hasn't scored a touchdown yet, and Marcelias Sutton is the only guy not named Rodney Anderson who's on the running back depth chart who scored 2 or more. And given the light workload that he's been given for the first 2 games, just 9 carries, he's picked up 71 yards, which is 7.9 yards per carry. And I don't think that they're throwing Marcelias Sutton back there to return kicks because he's slow, man. That's not what you do. That leads me to believe Marcelias Sutton is the fastest guy in the running back room and can run with Trey Brown. And we all know how fast Trey Brown is. But more than that, have you seen Marcelias Sutton's upper body? My goodness, this dude is built like Rodney Anderson is built. Give 21 the rock, let's see what he can do with it. Oh, and by the way, when you get tired of running the preacher man and TJ Pledger and Marcelias Sutton, Kennedy Brooks is averaging 12.8 yards per carry. Now that's on 4 carries, but he's picked up 51 yards and he had a 41-yard touchdown score. So Oklahoma is okay, better than okay. Still pretty nice at running back because the running back room at Oklahoma has always been loaded. But today, right now, I think the right choice is to make Marcelias Sutton and Trey Sermon the or backs. So it'll be interesting to see who gets that first load of carries. But we also know that Lincoln Riley's going to ride the hot hand as long as he can, which is what we saw out of Rodney Anderson last year in that brilliant 8-game stretch. So I think the feature back job is very much up for grabs. And if TJ Pledger can take it, let him. If Marcelias Sutton can take it, let him. The same goes for the preacher man. The same goes for Kennedy Brooks. But that is going to be the thing to watch from the offensive standpoint against Iowa State. Which back do we see the most of, and which back do we like the most? Matter of fact, tell me which back you like today in the comments below. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.